was a member of Parliament over in England, and after he quit, he had a big ambition of coming over and helping colonize Florida. That was one of his big things, was coming over to help the British after they had taken the land away from the Spanish to come over and colonize Florida. They had given him originally a grant of land not here in East Florida, but in West Florida. Well, he didn't like West Florida at all. He didn't want to go there. So he convinced, at that time, Governor Grant, who was a territorial governor for the British here, even though they had a feud going on for a long time, they finally agreed to let him have up to 23,000 acres on the St. Johns River. Well, he didn't stop at 23,000 acres, because over a period of time, he continued to buy a property here and ended up with close to 80,000 acres of land that was considered Rollestown. Well, when you read about William Bartram and John Bartram, when they came here in December of 1765, it was a high bluff, and Bartram talks about the high bluff in his book, the 17-foot high bluff that sort of fell off into swamps on either side. At that time, Denny Rolls had a nice home here and had started out with 200 indentured servants, but by the time he got here, he had hardly anybody, because they all seemed to abscond anywhere from Savannah to Charleston to St. Augustine. They didn't want to come to the wild Florida. They all were getting away from there. So from the very beginning, Denny had a hard time trying to colonize this piece of property here. And he didn't stay here a whole lot, back and forth, back over to England and all, because he still had considerable wealth and properties in England. He had rental income of 40,000 pounds back in the 1700s, which was a fortune back in those days. So he had property to maintain back over there, and his wife didn't like it over here either. They kept bringing people over here, but the people he brought over here didn't like what they were doing, so they would run away. Now, the property stretched 23 miles on the St. Johns River. His property stretched from around Deep Creek, Federal Point, Deep Creek, all the way back down to Dunn's Creek, which is the last creek that we went in and circled. That was the length of his property here on the St. Johns River. Just a huge, huge tract of land. It actually went over into St. Johns County also. It was more than just Putnam County. It was also in St. Johns County too. He actually was one of the first individuals to bring in cattle into the state of Florida for production of meat and to make a profit off of. He had a plan he had to submit, and his plan called for 24,000 acres of rice land, 14,000 acres of corn land, 6,000 acres of pasture, and 42,000 acres of turpentine. Of course, the turpentine business continued after he left, and after we became Putnam County and all that, was a major business here in Putnam County for a long time. When the British gave up their land back to Spain, he turned the land back over and left with all the other British people. He never really made a go of it here on this property, even though this was his dream, was to do this. So.